Hi, I'm Wang, and I'm live here in Pune. We're actually at the brand new Tata Research Development and Design Center. And of course, it's very lush out over this direction. We're at the brand new building here, and I'm going to be meeting Harrick Vin, the Chief Technology Officer here at TRDDC. Hey, I'm really excited to be here, and I think one of the interesting topics, of course, has been artificial intelligence, but that alone doesn't necessarily have the societal implications. A lot of people are trying to understand AI and human and the future of work. Let's start there. Where do you see this future of work happening, and what's actually going with artificial intelligence and where we see the future of work?
Well, Ray, first of all, glad to see you here today, and welcome to TCS. I think we've been looking at this whole area of future of work, or even future of, I would say, knowledge work, fairly carefully over the last several years. And it's a very fascinating area, because if you think about knowledge work, actually, there are two interesting observations that we have been actually making. The first one is that in all kinds of knowledge work, we see there is a very high degree of variance between what I would call as elite and average. Often a factor of 100 to 1000x. So the best doctor, average doctor, best lawyer, average lawyer, best software engineer, average software engineer, best marketing campaign, average marketing campaign. The gap is usually very, very large. So we've been spending a lot of time thinking about why this gap is coming and how can technology help actually produce potentially elite by design outputs. So that's the first part of the thing that we have been looking at. The second thing that we have been looking at is really sort of understanding work like technology. We seem to feel that it also follows sort of an S-curve principle, where it takes a long time for us to actually mature a certain line of work, sort of get the people, process, technology sorted out, and then it dramatically improves very quickly, and then eventually it starts stagnating. And this is something that we have seen happen in every type of work, whether it is sales processes or even IT or software engineering processes. The question is, how do you actually design knowledge work that is vibrant by design, meaning that you can sort of keep riding and jumping to new S-curves to actually continuously improve value to customers.
You know, it's amazing. We always think that it's going to be fine this time when the S-curve, and then it just drops.
Yes.
So the leap to the next S-curve, like, does that happen because something on the artificial intelligence level, or something that happens in the people level?
Well, I think right now it is very driven by tacit knowledge, right? So if you think about all knowledge work, it's actually a combination of decisions and actions. Right. Today, by and large, we are using technology to improve the productivity of actions. The decisions themselves about what to do, why to do, when to do, or even when to adapt to sort of decide on which S-curve you want to jump to, because there are several choices at any point in time. So it's usually a game of choices, which is the decision-making part, which is heavily dependent on tacit knowledge. So in a sense, it's a lot more human intelligence rather than artificial intelligence today. But that is actually also where we think that the machines can play a substantial role in defining future of knowledge work. Because in addition to using technology to actually improve productivity, we should actually start asking the question, can technology be used to improve the decision-making ability of people so that they can make elite by design decisions, right? In fact, when you think about creativity and decision-making, we usually think that there are sort of two types of creativity. What I call a small c creativity, which is all about making contextually optimal decisions, leveraging known options. The big C creativity is actually creation or design of new options. So 95% of what most people do in their day-to-day life is actually small c creativity, and machines can actually be used very effectively to augment people's ability to make brilliant decisions by design, and thereby actually shrink the gap between sort of the elite and average.
No, and this is really important, right? That portfolio of small c types of decisions is basically helping us accelerate data decisions. And you said a very important word that we're seeing right now. When we think about how AI is being used in the future of work, we see 5 areas. We see augmentation, which is the beginning, right? And that's helping us to do things, and actually provide more skill sets, more knowledge, right? So we can actually be more effective. And then the second piece is acceleration, right? The back to your S-curve, we're seeing the ability to move through that S-curve much more quickly. And when we get it right, here's your drop-off point, which is automation. And once we have the automation in place, maybe we can leap and get to the next S-curve. And we also see the part where agents are evolving and advisors are moving from being reactive to proactively trying to actually identify something for you.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. That's a great way of actually putting it. I love the sort of the 5 A's that you talked about. I think we actually feel that we should start using technology to keep continuously augmenting people. So I constantly think about sort of making good people great people, going from good output to great output by design, and potentially great outcomes by design.
And designing for human scale then comes into place, right? And because we lose so much knowledge.
Yes.
From generations, right? 20 years, there's a 20-year gap. We always say, like, when you mentor someone, you want to have a 20-year gap to pass it on because you get reverse mentoring. Someone younger actually shows you a different approach. Someone older shows you an experienced approach. And somewhere in between, a spark of innovation occurs.
Yes, absolutely. So there is a lot of tacit knowledge that actually gets collected within an organization as well as for an individual over a period of time, which is what is actually used in sort of making these great decisions. One of the other interesting observations that we have been also seeing is that the whole area of tacit knowledge is also becoming obsolete faster than ever before, because the rate of change is so large that the best way to do this, something that was determined, let's say, a few months ago, is probably no longer the best way to do it today. In fact, if you think about the way the large language models and so on are evolving, the relative choices and the decisions that you would have taken a few months ago or even a few weeks ago may not be necessarily the best choice today. So being able to actually, so when people make decisions only based on tacit knowledge or what somebody else did, in fact, to your point, if I sort of look at what decisions somebody else made 5 years ago, and if I simply follow those decisions today to drive my own career, it's not likely to actually work out well.
Yes.
Because it's almost like driving by looking at the rear view mirror. And when the rate of change is so large, one has to constantly keep asking the question, what is the best way to do this today, not some time ago?
Right. And that understanding of context is not something we can track, but collectively, actually, in a business graph or what actually happens, the future of LLMs or where we head, that institutional knowledge becomes a competitive advantage for every organization.
No, absolutely. So in some sense, we think of that as much more of the knowledge engineering space. So converting a lot of tacit knowledge that is either residing in various forms of content within an organization or often also in heads of people. If there is a way to externalize it into some sort of a knowledge graph or a knowledge engineering platform, and that can then be used to actually augment people's ability to make better decisions, then the game changes completely.
Well, some of the top use cases in AI already is code design. Right?
Yes.
It's a great place where we actually see the ability to go from decision velocity to decision automation.
Yes.
Just assembling code. How fast is it taking folks today? Is it 1/5 fast? Is it 1/5 the time? Is it 1/10 the time?
Well, I would probably like to think of this not necessarily just in terms of the speed and the productivity, but also in terms of the quality. If you really look at, for example, software engineering, and you look at some of these metrics that the DORA metrics report from Google, et cetera, publishes, and you see that the gap between sort of average engineer and or average software and elite software is often a factor of 100. And what is fascinating is that this gap is not changing year after year.
It's getting worse.
Yeah. So the question now is so instead of what I've been actually promoting internally is asking the question, should we be thinking about productivity only? Or should we be looking at how this technology can be used to augment people such that they are able to produce this elite by design outputs, right? So can we build software that is designed for zero ops on day one?
Nice. And it's quality by design, security by
Exactly.
design, being able to be composable right away.
Exactly. So that's really where we think the future is likely to be. And that's where, in fact, machines, going back to our small c creativity discussion, machines are actually pretty good at tracking changes in the options as well as doing effectively sort of the what if what analysis using some sort of a digital twin to answer and help me make contextually optimal decisions. So actually, we feel that the future is actually going to be all about figuring out what is the relative balance of what people should do and what machines should do. And by the way, this balance is also going to continuously keep shifting because machines are getting more and more intelligent. So in a sense, people will have to become a lot more shift towards a lot of critical thinking, sort of critiquing work done by machines and sort of owning the creativity side.
You're absolutely right. When and where we insert a human is going to be the design point, not where do we automate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is probably going to be the difference between success and failure. Number one, also that choice is not going to stay static.
No.
So it is going to shift constantly. So in fact, I keep saying that the roles of people is going to fundamentally keep shifting as we embark on this journey. So the role of people will shift from doers of work to sort of trainers and interrogators of machines, reviewers of work done by machines, and owners of critical thinking and creativity, right?
Right. And there are not only just societal implications, there's also legal implications. One of the things that happened yesterday, we got a request from a supplier vendor management request that has us certify that none of the projects or none of the items we've created were done with generative AI. I've never seen anything like this before.
Yes.
So, but it's starting to happen, right? We're seeing the legal implications.
No, there are legal implications, there are ethical considerations, there are responsibility considerations, and all of that. And this is actually, I mean, in fact, I feel that the problem is even more complex than what people are realizing, because it's not just about, if you will, design time responsibility or design time doing things that is ethically correct. It is also actually at runtime.
Yes.
Right? Because these systems, if they start misbehaving, the question is, can you actually detect and arrest that in near real time? Because otherwise you can cause what I would call as artificial insanity, which is basically sort of not being able to control an intelligent machine.
No, it's true. And that's why when we look at machine scale versus human scale, the trick is to build breaks. We do that in trading curbs today.
Yes.
Right? Otherwise, we continue to actually perpetuate a trend to the bottom, and that would be very insane, as you mentioned.
Yes. But the problem is starting to become more and more complex because you, in sort of traditional areas, you can actually set these thresholds and actually say that, well, this is considered unacceptable. When you are actually dealing with something which is inherently non-deterministic,
Yes.
and actually much more unstructured in some sense, putting these thresholds is actually itself becoming a non-trivial problem.
Yeah, and vice versa, right? Using a probabilistic model to solve a deterministic problem might not be the right solution.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I mean, I would say that perhaps a big challenge that every enterprise is facing nowadays is actually figuring out when not to use GenAI rather than when to use GenAI, because right now everybody is using GenAI. It's sort of a big hammer and is looking for nails. Actually, the more interesting question is how to actually decompose a problem that you are trying to solve into smaller chunks and activities, and then ask the question, which activity is best suited for a GenAI technology, and where you would use, say, traditional AI or predictive AI.
Right.
And use a judicious blend between not only different technologies, the traditional and GenAI, but also people. Going back to our earlier point about where to insert people is going to become perhaps the most important choice.
I mean, it's going from hammers to screwdrivers to laser welding.
Yes, absolutely. And actually bringing them together in a judicious manner to actually achieve an outcome that you want to achieve, rather than technology looking for a problem to solve.
Well, this is fascinating. I think hopefully people listening have gotten some interesting insights in the way we're thinking and layering these conversations. Let's talk a little bit more about the research center. What is new? What's hot? Is there something you can reveal or share with us about what's happening here, or what we should see on the horizon?
Yeah, I think, the world is changing very rapidly. I mean, we started talking about knowledge work and the use of AI, Gen AI, and so on. Actually, I feel that we are in a sort of just about embarking in an era where the knowledge work capacity of individuals is actually going to probably double every couple of years or so. And because of sort of the perfect storm that is brewing, time to build software is coming down by a factor of 2. Intelligence of software is actually increasing constantly. And in fact, the intelligence of workspaces that people use is also increasing on a daily basis. So when you combine the three, the knowledge work capacity of individuals, teams, or organizations is likely to dramatically increase over time, which means that every domain of work that actually relies upon sort of significant amount of combination of decisions and action knowledge work in general is likely to get redefined. So in a sense, from a research and innovation perspective at TCS, we are really asking the question, what is the future of X?
Great question.
And the X could be sort of enterprise or industry agnostic functions like software engineering or marketing or sales or even customer success or customer service, as well as industry specific jobs, if you will, things like underwriting and risk management and insurance, or drug discovery, or future of wellness. What is the future of screening or diagnosis or treatment, right? Future of logistics, which is also going to be a combination of humans and robots working together judiciously to completely redefine the future of logistics. So we are basically organizing ourselves into these future of X initiatives. By the way, some of these X initiatives are also societal in nature.
Yeah.
Right? Financial wellness is a great example. What is the future of financial wellness? It is not just about actually sort of wealth management, but it's all about how do we get people to be aware of options, same small c creativity, to actually help them choose, make the right decisions all through their life to actually, sustainability is another great example. So what is the future of water, soil, air, and so on. So these are the kinds of, some of these are societal in nature, some of these are commercial in nature, and some of these are cross-industry, some of these are industry-specific, which is really sort of how we are organizing ourselves into these future of X initiatives, which we believe each of these have the potential to be completely reimagined.
You know, you're absolutely right. If you take intersection points, behavior design, right, AI, and user experience, you'll change the way you look at financial wellness. And it's the intersection of this. You know, one of the things that I've appreciated the most being a research innovation advisory board member is seeing the ability to create these new intersections. And that's really where these innovations are going to spark.
Yeah, and in fact, yeah, absolutely, completely agree with you. It's at the intersections is where the game is. There is also another interesting game that is, I mean, we are sort of reaching in an era where the way you engage with talent, which is people, basically at the heart of all of this,
Yep.
is also going to actually change dramatically, because the half-life of a skill is actually drastically coming down. It's come down from 30 years to roughly 6 years, and it's shrinking fast, which means how do we actually retrain and get people to elevate themselves and grow in their careers on a continuous basis? I mean, at TCS, it's a humongous challenge. We have 600,000 people. We retrain nearly 100,000 people every year.
I was hoping for Neuralink to work.
Yes.
Because we can't do this fast enough. That dissemination, right? So you've got the half-life occurring, you've got the ability to actually need to reskill, you've got a changing market condition. Dissemination is going to be so hard, and the ability to absorb is going to be even harder.
Well, actually, that really raises interesting questions even about what is the future of education and what is the future of 4-year degrees. Right? What should you be teaching? Should you be teaching hard skills or more soft skills? About being able to communicate your thoughts clearly, being able to do critical thinking and analyze something very well and deeply and make coherent arguments, deal with ambiguity, for example.
And that's the future of education. I mean, it could be a subscription service.
Yes.
It's a 60-year education where you continuously learn things along the way.
Yes. So should we teach people how to learn rather than teach people skills? Right. So sort of learning to learn is probably going to become far more important. The being able to actually do a careful assessment of anything, thinking deeply about something, being critical or critiquing some piece of text or whatever, is going to become an important skill of the future. Right. And I think, I mean, when you look at something like TCS, while on one hand we are actually constantly training a lot of people on hard skills that are becoming more and more important, we have to also actually start training people from an organizational perspective, designing organizations for change, where because the role of people is going to constantly change, how do you actually design an organization that can also continuously adapt?
Right. And we've seen this in the past. You anchor on the mission, but people come and go and they flow as they need to, depending on the mission and the purpose. Almost like special teams in military applications.
No, absolutely. And if you look at even the Gen Zs, they are actually very clearly going away from traditional corporate linear ladders. They're actually going to, you see the behavior where they want to actually self-discover their passions, which means that they are going from a linear ladder to a more of a squiggly career model, where you sort of try and experiment with various things, especially if you think about these sort of half-life of skill coming down to 6 years or so. All of these guys are probably going to have to retrain themselves maybe 4, 5, 6 times during their careers. So being able to self-discover what you're really good at and passionate about is actually going to become incredibly important. So it's going back to the training concept. It's a combination of making all of the content, if you will, available to them, but at the same time, nurturing them to find their passion is actually where the future of training or sort of talent engagement is going to shift to.
You're absolutely right. I think we're heading from the pursuit of money to the pursuit of knowledge. We might even hit the Star Trek economy on our way here.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, this has been wonderful. I've been here with Harrick Vin, CTO of TCS, and more importantly, having a great conversation live here in your brand new facility. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks a lot, Ray. It was always a pleasure to see you and a fantastic conversation.